Hello and welcome. Kerry here from Healing Humanity, along with Dr. Tony Hampton and Alia Wells. How's it going, guys?
Great, thank you. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for supporting this initiative and having both you guys. Alia, Carrie is just warms my heart. That's what the Carnivore community is all about, supporting each other. So thank you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Dr. Georgia Eid reached out to me and told me about Metabolic Revolution Rally, and I hadn't heard about it before. And then I actually met Dr. Georgia Eid through you, Dr. Tony Hampton. So I have to thank you for that again. We're going to be filming her next month for the documentary. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I'm looking forward myself to learning more. I know a little bit about the Metabolic Revolution Rally. There's some stuff going on in the news lately that's kind of exciting, like in sort of a good direction for some of these talks and getting the word about metabolic health. Maybe if we just start out, Dr. Hampton, do you want to talk a little bit about the event, the rally?
Absolutely. The rally is an opportunity for us in the know, us who understand the importance of metabolic health. And I'll share some talking points around metabolic health so everybody's on the same page. To get in front of a larger audience, because we live in a bubble. If I go to a conference like the Symposium for Metabolic Health or Keto Orlando or any of these conferences, you are basically preaching to the choir. You have some new faces, but you also have a lot of regulars, and even the speakers tend to not change much. So in order to make a difference in the world, in the communities we serve, we have to reach a bigger audience. I do that in my health system, which is Advocate Health. And by, reaching my colleagues, and as you know, some of the conventionally trained docs are not familiar with metabolic health, insulin resistance, and those terms. So the goal is to reach more people. And sometimes the best way to do that, have a grassroots effort and have a rally. And the whole point of a rally, as we saw from the Democratic and Republican conventions, is to get people excited about something. But people are not aware how excited they should be about this. And as we walk through some of the reasons why they should be excited, I want to engage everybody who's checking us out to support these initiatives. And everybody has an impact. It's not just the doctors and the professors and others. It's actually people on the front line who have testimonials, who can share their success stories. So that's why I'm excited about this. And when Nina Teichels asked me to participate, it's going to be October the 13th in Washington, D.C. She had me at hello. I was so excited. And I'm really excited about helping to spread this message. So again, tonight, we're going to just touch on it a little bit, give you some ideas about metabolic health, what that means, and then ask for your support so we can get this message out to more people.
I love it. I was thinking about this before, Dr. Hampton, Metabolic Revolution Rally. I feel like now that I've been carnivore, I'm around 550 days now, I know more about metabolic health. But if I think back before this, I was clueless. Like, I heard the word metabolism, or this person has good metabolism or bad metabolism. But I feel like knowing what I know now afterwards, it's probably one of the most important things I should have been aware of before. The only thing I was worried about before was, what about cholesterol, or what about eating too much fat, or things that I probably didn't need to worry about as much as metabolic health.
And they didn't teach us doctors much about metabolic health either. In fact, the term is somewhat novel to most clinicians. So that's why we have to have a revolution, because if the doctors are not aware that this is a thing, then how are we going to get the word out? In fact, I called myself the metabolic health doc with the idea that we need to socialize that term. And so again, tonight we'll socialize the term and engage everybody in this journey to help people heal. Again, it's very exciting when you go to clinic and people are celebrating getting off medicine as a routine in the clinic. I want that for every clinician. I want that for every patient. And I want that for all families who have people who have suffered. So it's really kind of disappointing that it's not out there. But what's exciting is the future, as you have suggested, is looking bright. People are starting to understand this, and people are starting to celebrate this. And again, we can do this every night and we wouldn't be doing enough. So I'm just happy we're doing it tonight. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing I've heard along my carnivore journey, I don't remember where I heard this, but I heard that you are 6 times more likely to suffer heart disease if you have poor metabolic health versus having, say, elevated cholesterol numbers. And that just blew my mind because doing this carnivore stuff and talking to a lot of people, so many people will say to me, well, it's great, you're healing yourself, but what about your cholesterol? And everybody is only in this world seems to be worried about cholesterol when you're 6 times more likely to suffer heart disease from having poor metabolic health. And most people don't know what it is. So I guess I'm excited as well that we're getting the word out and more people are learning about this, because I think, frankly, most people should be concerned and worried about their metabolic health. And most people aren't even aware of even what it is. So,
well, let's speak to what you just said. You said most people are not aware. And ironically, you said 6 times, you know what I mean? You said 6, right? So this is the key. How do you become aware? Well, you measure a fasting insulin level as a start. Now, we're going to talk about the other measures of metabolic health, but everybody on this call, if you've not done it before, you ask your doctor or your advanced practice clinician to order a fasting insulin level. If they look at you like deers in the headlight and they say, you don't need that, then you say to them, I am a customer. So as a customer who's receiving a service, would you do it? If they still push back, then we have people like Dave Feltman, who has Own Your Own Labs and other organizations where you can simply get it yourself. Now, here's the 6th part that you mentioned. Your fasting, your cholesterol that's fasted or your LDL cholesterol, if that's your baseline, the fasting insulin level is 6.7 times more predictive of a future heart attack or poor metabolic disease. 6.7. Your blood pressure is twice as predictive as your cholesterol and your LDL. So do we care about LDL? Yeah, if we look at the particle sizes, and you can ask your doctor, can you check my LDL particle sizes? And if you have a lot of small particles, and that could be a problem. The large particles bounce off your arteries. The small particles get into the crevices of your arteries. So here's another test. We have a fasting insulin. We have a particle test that will be more predictive than a total cholesterol. And by the way, the total cholesterol includes the triglycerides, the HDL, the LDL, and something called the VLDL. So the total cholesterol means nothing because many of my patients have a very high good cholesterol, which is the HDL, and they actually are doing really well. So to worry about the total cholesterol is essentially a waste of time. And if you're going to worry about the LDL, it's not the quantity, but the quality. And the quality is defined by the small and large particles. So my hope is that people who are checking us out who have not done that, and I will throw in a calcium score test as well, they need to get these tests. And if you're in a health system and or with a clinician who doesn't get it, then you find one who does, and or you encourage them to do it, and or you find another way to get it yourself.
Right. Absolutely. So, Dr. Hampton, can we talk a little bit more about the Metabolic Revolution Rally?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, let me share my screen because I really want to make sure that we talk about the rally while also talking about metabolic health. And it is so important that you guys understand that only 7% of the population in America, and I'm sure it's the same throughout the world, are metabolically healthy. That means that everybody knows somebody who's not metabolically healthy. And part of that is because of the obesity epidemic. And as you can see, we're getting to half. This was in 2016 when 43% of Americans were obese. Well, we're years after that, and we're probably at 50%. So if you have obesity, you're probably going to have poor metabolic health, as you'll see. So on October 13th, myself and some of my colleagues, and I'll share who they are momentarily, will get in front of the Washington crowd and say, hey guys, we're here. And although this is not about carnivore, as you can see, it's about low carb, keto, and carnivore as one of the greatest levers you can pull to achieve metabolic health. So here are the speakers. And I started with Nina Teicholz. We know she's the author of The Big Fat Surprise because Nina has, she's the person who invited me to participate, but she's such a a person who really wants to get this message out. She has the Nutrition Coalition, and she's really concerned about the dietary guidelines not serving us. Jessica Apple may be new to you, but she's a writer, editor, and she is one of the founders of the Metabolic Revolution. So I wanted to put her in front of you. Everybody knows Dr. Robert Lustig. Dr. Mariana Glant is an endocrinologist who's also trained in metabolic health. We just spoke about Dr. Georgia Ede, who's helping people, put some of their mental illness into remission, maybe do much better with their dementia, et cetera. Dr. Eric Westman's been doing research in the low carb space since 2002. Myself, I'll be speaking. Vinny Tortorich has been in the low carb community for a long time, probably one of the pioneers. Dr. Troy Kalasian is like myself, a frontline physician. I think he's lost 150 pounds doing a keto diet. Dr. Matthew Bernstein, Dr. Christopher Palmer, Dr. Mark Cucuzzello. Elijah Effman is a patient who's going to do a testimony, and Dr. Morgan Picard. So those are the people who will be participating. Again, I just wanted to put that in front of you. And again, 7% are metabolically healthy. Most people don't even know what that is because they haven't had a fasting insulin. Their doctor doesn't take their borderline A1C seriously. And at the end of the day, and Nina Teicholz will shout this from the rooftops, those dietary guidelines are not serving us. They're not designed for the unhealthy. And I would argue they're not designed for the healthy. So we have to fight back, push back, and that's what this revolution is all about. Now, when it comes to metabolic health, you have these definitions. We have the clinical definition, that's the lane I live in. And in that clinical lane, we think about our belly size, we think about fasting, we think about our blood pressure, triglycerides, and our HDL cholesterol. And it's very important that you understand that if you're not metabolically healthy, then 80% of the medical problems that you are likely to worry about down the road, things like high blood pressure, diabetes, stroke, dementia, cancer, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fatty liver, all of these things are the same disease. Imagine pulling one lever, the lever of achieving metabolic health, and you don't have to really worry about those things. And if you do have to worry about them, you'll probably be 90 or older. And why not pull that lever now while you're young and have an opportunity to do so? So metabolic health refers to the overall state of our body's metabolic processes and how efficient it works. So if you're able to do the things that you want to do, then you're probably metabolically healthy. In other words, you're an older person who wants to get on your knees and play with your grandchild. You're probably metabolically healthy. If you can walk up a flight of stairs and not be short of breath, you're probably more metabolically healthy. So it's about being able to do the things that you want to do to survive and live and thrive. Metabolism is really about taking the food energy that you consume and being able to process that food effectively. The problem is when you think about the relationship between those two, if I consume too much of the food, then my body has to take some of that extra energy and convert it into things like glycogen in your liver and in your muscles for later energy use, or most importantly, and probably most of it, into fat. So if you're not metabolically healthy, or if your metabolism's not balanced, you will become obese, and that obesity will increase your risk for many conditions. So clinically, you're going to see these measures to determine if you're metabolically healthy. And most of you have seen these before. It's your belly size, less than 40 inches for men, less than 35 for women. Your blood sugar, when you're fasting, should be between 70 and 100, but less than 100. Your blood pressure should be in the 120/80 range or lower. Your triglycerides, which are those fats floating around in your blood, should be less than 150. And then a good cholesterol called HDL needs to be greater than 40 for men and 50 for women. So that'll give you kind of a clinical perspective. And metabolic syndrome is when you have 3 out of 5 of those things that are not in the right range, right? So it could be any of them, but those are the things you think about. And again, as I mentioned previously, it's going to increase your risk for these health conditions that we all worry about. 1 out of every 3 Americans are not metabolic, you have metabolic syndrome. Now, when you go back to what I said earlier, saying that only 7% are metabolically healthy, that doesn't seem to line up right. Well, metabolic syndrome is 3 out of 5. Not metabolically healthy means that you got 1 out of 5. So you're talking about a whole lot of folk who are in these categories. And if you just got one of them that's off, you're still considered not metabolically healthy. And only 7% of us meet that criteria. So it's pretty scary. And the other thing that's important is that metabolic health is a spectrum. You don't just wake up one day and you're not metabolically healthy. It doesn't work that way. What happens is it's a process, right? And ultimately, you may only have a little belly fat. It may start at that, right? And then next thing you know, my blood sugar is starting to go up a little bit. Next thing you know, because the blood sugar is high now, my blood pressure is off because of the inflammation from the sugar in your blood. So I think that it's a process. And I think that in order for us to be as healthy as this young lady in this image, we're going to have to understand it's time to start now. You don't want to wait at all. And I think that's important. Again, the point of this discussion is to provide clarity, but it's also to encourage you guys to support that. So before I go further, Alia, maybe you can share how they can support this rally.
Okay, great. So we have a GoFundMe. I have put it in the chat of Carrie, and also it is in the description of both of the live streams, actually all of our live streams. So if you would like to support, that would be amazing. Any little dollar counts. Can I just point one thing out though, from a perspective of a mom, why we need to handle this now?
Yes.
So I've got 2 kids. Me as a child in the 90s, I was obese. I love French fries, pizza, Domino's pizza. I know I'm from Chicago. I should not be talking about Domino's pizza, but no, but I look back at myself as a 10-year-old. And I have pictures and people are like, oh, but you were so cute. It doesn't matter how cute I was. And now I look at other 10-year-olds and they're way bigger than me. The problem is not that these kids are fat. The problem is the diseases that are starting in their body. We can't have these kids that are 10 because they can't be living until they're 40. We need these kids now are the future of our civilization. And if they're sick with autoimmune conditions, younger people are getting cancer, younger people are getting diabetes. That means like shorter lifespan. Like we got to think about the future, our own future and our kids' future. I hope I'm making sense here. Like if everybody's getting sick and dying earlier, we have like a very big problem and we need to resolve this now. And it's all about what we put in our mouths. Yeah. That's the hard pill to swallow, but it's the easiest pill to swallow at the same time. And we need to educate people. So it's really important.
Alia, that's so important. I'm with you 100%. And I said the same thing recently. I was thinking about this more. I was so unhealthy and had so many issues due to having poor metabolic health myself. And I ate poorly, like fast food and stuff. But when I look at this next generation coming up, it's ultra processed generation. They're all eating highly ultra processed foods. It's so much worse than when I was younger and eating those things. And I had horrible outcomes. So it's so important. The other thing that's heartbreaking about it from my perspective is these children are in their most important years where they're still growing and they're still developing, and then we're putting all these poisons and toxins into them. I think history is going to look back years from now, hopefully not too many years from now, but maybe decades from now, and say, what the heck were we thinking? What were we doing back then? So it is so important. So Alia has posted the link for the GoFundMe. I've donated myself. I'm a huge supporter of this. Anyone that wants to get involved, please do, because as Dr. Hampton said earlier, this isn't going to change by itself. It's never going to change. All of the other driving forces are trying to convince us to keep eating this way. Every financial incentive is to keep us sick and keep us eating highly processed foods and keeping us confused about it. It has to be a grassroots effort by individuals like ourselves if we're ever going to change this. So.
Yeah,
exactly. And can I just point out why we need to donate to this, in addition to like the obvious reasons, like we need to save humanity, but we need to pay for like promotion and posters and various things like that, and that all costs money. And so that's kind of like why we're asking for this help tonight. And yeah, in addition to saving the human race.
That's right. And maybe we can even fund some folks with limited resources to attend the rally, or at least to reach those communities that may not be aware. And I think it's so important that people, again, we want to emphasize the dietary guidelines have not served us well. So we want to be able to reach people and help them understand this. And so when I think about Alia and I think about her being a mom, I want her to be the best mom possible. In order for her to be a phenomenal mom, she has to have the energy, mental clarity, and the patience. Amen to that. The patience to be a parent. And I know when I had Carrie on my YouTube channel and we've talked beyond even that, how he's so much more of a father to while being busy, spreading this message, while having his other businesses, he actually has the bandwidth to be present. So when they grab him at the end of the day and have a concern, he can have the mental clarity, energy, and the motivation to be a great dad. So it's not just about our babies, it's about what happens today and what happens tomorrow. And we will not have to wait until we're 90 to say, I'm still here, I'm doing okay. No, your life's going to change immediately when you become metabolically healthy. I actually got up and did a light jog this morning, did some exercise, but I also I had to get a trainer because I'm a human being that will not get up in the morning if I don't have a trainer saying, did you exercise today? So sometimes you need a little nudge, and that same nudge we give to our kids so that they can be successful. So I just really appreciate you guys sharing your personal testimonials. And I tell you, I can preach this all day long. So let's just look at, this is ironic. That's the next slide, right? Why does it matter, right? We just said it. How ironic, right? So quality of life and longevity. It's nice to be here longer so that it's not just the kids you are here with, your great grandkids and your great great grandkids. You're sitting on the porch with one of them on your knees, and you're like 95, and your mental clarity, you don't have dementia. That's the kind of future I think we all dream of. But most importantly, while you're living, who wants to get all of those chronic diseases and be on a bag of medicine? In fact, that speaker who will be at the event that I mentioned during the earlier part of this discussion was on 15 medicines and got off all of her medicines. So that's what's possible for you and your family. I don't care what you've been told. That's what's possible. I see it in my clinic, and I see it in all aspects of my life. Health span is a nice term to be aware of. It's the number of years you spend in good health. And again, many people say they don't want to live to 100 because they assume that by the time they get older, they're not going to have a quality life. But if you do have a quality life, why not still be here? You're not in pain, you're not suffering from illness. And the benefits is that you will be able to live your life purpose, be around people you care about, and just have an impact on the world as you have imagined. Stress is important, guys. And stress is a good thing because, again, when I go and speak in front of a crowd, maybe even in Washington, maybe I'll be a little stressed, but that's good stress. That stress is going to get the adrenaline going and allow me to speak with passion at a rally. Chronic stress, however, is a disaster. And I remember when I used to deliver babies, I don't do that anymore. I'm a family doctor. But when I deliver babies, and I've been involved with over 700 deliveries, either directly or, it's crazy, directly or supervising a resident. I was doing C-sections, tying tubes, and doing all kinds of stuff in my previous life. Well, guess what, guys? One of the number one reasons why African-American women in particular have high miscarriage rates, have a lot of complications with delivery is because they have chronic stress. And that chronic stress may be because they're a single mom. It may be because they're having to work the night shift. It may be because they simply don't have support. When they then put those people in front of people who can then support them, guess what? They then have similar outcomes as their white counterparts. Chronic stress will kill you. So part of our decision, part of what we do in the low carb community is not just talk about low carb, keto, and carnivore. We talk about other factors which help us manage through life. And it's really important that you understand that. So stress is critical to be metabolically healthy. And if you are metabolically healthy, then you're like a machine. You're like that RoboCop. Remember that movie back in the day?
Oh yeah.
But you can do some damage then. You can do some damage because you become adaptable. You can use glucose when you need to. You can use ketones when you need to. You're just a more efficient machine. Because I did some exercise earlier today, I just feel better, even though it's late in the evening. I feel great because my body is a metabolically healthy body. I'm able to recover. And again, the quality of my life is better. So if my wife asks me to do something, even after this live stream, I don't look at her funny because I have the energy to do it. You know, it could be something as simple. Think about it, guys. Everybody's experienced this. You're sitting next to your partner, or you're just sitting there by yourself, and you don't even want to get up to get the remote to turn the TV channel because your body just doesn't feel like it. Imagine just getting up and you don't feel anything. And if anything, you have a bounce in your step. That's what happens when you become obese.
I was just gonna say, Dr. Hampton, it's funny your example there. I was talking to someone earlier and I was thinking back before I fixed my metabolic health. My primary job for most of my adult life was working on a computer. And I would come home after 8-9 hours doing this, typing, and I was so exhausted, I'd plunk down on the couch and pass out. Just now it's like pathetic when I think about it. I can go to midnight now. I could be chopping wood or running around doing exercise. I think that's a thing. You know, people don't know what they don't know. But that constant fatigue and brain fog that we have when we have poor metabolic health is something I think a lot of people don't understand until you get out of that fog. It is really an incredible thing to live your life to sort of your fullest potential.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. And you just, in fact, sometimes when it's late and I'm kind of a 9:30, 10 o'clock guy, I wake up early every day and I'm worried because it's 8 and I'm not tired. I'm like, am I going to be able to go to sleep? But thankfully, 99% of the time it's not a problem. So it's really a gift. And what I did, speaking to that, what you just said, because I've worked from home sometimes, but what I do at work, literally only about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I now have a what they call a cow. Now, we know we like to eat cows. Shout out to all the cows. But my cow is a computer on wheels. And so I use my cow to stand up 80-90% of the time when I'm seeing patients. And it's so weird because I thought that wouldn't be a good idea, but I feel better having done that. My back doesn't bother me as much. So guys, if that's one tip we can give you guys about feeling better as you're becoming metabolically healthy, try not to sit all day. If you have a job where you can get a desk or something where it stands up for a little bit, that's absolutely helpful. This is just a slide that shows that there is a correlation between your blood sugar, your insulin sensitivity, and things like that. And it says being metabolically unhealthy is often correlated with reduced insulin sensitivity or even insulin resistant, meaning the insulin's not going to work very well. And you need your insulin to help your glucose to get into your cells. So if the insulin's not working very well, you're going to be borderline diabetic, insulin resistant, and ultimately have diabetes. So we really want to understand that relationship. And we also want to understand that when it comes to, digestion, your body's going to take that glucose in, and then you're going to be able to take that energy to turn into fuel, but your pancreas has to release insulin to make that happen. And when that happens, you can actually, when things are balanced, you can take that energy and use it in the form of ATP as energy. But when things are off, imagine you get all of this great energy in your body and your insulin's not working well because you're insulin resistant. Now it's just going to float around and wreak havoc on your body. You hear terms like, how the glucose, when it's high in your body, it's like glue. It sticks to your cells, causes all kinds of damage, not just in your blood vessels, guys, but in your nerves, which is why these conditions are so deadly, because it affects the nerves in your eyes. You're blind. It affects the nerves in your kidney. Number one cause of kidney failure is high sugars, is diabetes. You have amputations because it affects the nerves and arteries in your feet. That's peripheral artery disease. The nerves in your heart, and the arteries in your heart. Now you got a heart attack. The arteries in your brain. Now you got a stroke. Oh, by the way, your brain also deals with dementia. Now you got dementia. When I said that it affects everything, guys, it affects everything. And that's why the return on investment is so important if we do this. So we don't want these rapid glucose spikes. And that's one thing about being carnivore, and I'll just mention that. When you're carnivore, you're using protein and fat as your fuel. You're not using carbs. So you don't have to worry about these spikes. And you allow your body to take the glucose from your liver, because it converts the protein and fat into glucose for you, and it'll do it on demand. So if I eat a pound cake and I get like 40 or 50 carbs from that pound cake, divided by 4 is 10 to 13 teaspoons of sugar to your body, and you only have 1 teaspoon in your body at a given time, you could imagine that's gonna be too much for your body to handle. And that's in anybody, but imagine if you're insulin resistant, or imagine if you have diabetes. It's an absolute disaster. And again, the long-term consequences of all those health conditions I mentioned, and so many people do not have the capacity to do that. So, and if you have insulin resistance like this gentleman in this slide, and your blood sugars are high, your risk for metabolic syndrome is high, you're just going to struggle. And you're going to be walking around, as Carrie used to be, lethargic and tired. And your appetite's going to be insane. You're going to be grazing like a cow, because you're going to be up and down sugars, up and down insulins, up and down appetite. Oh, by the way, Carrie used to talk about up and down mood, irritable, not able to be present for your family. So if this guy showed up at the end of the day after having a difficult day at work, what's the chances he'll be the best version of himself? What's the chances he'll be that great father that's going to take his kids to the football game or be the coach for the football team? He would dare sign up to be the coach, because he wouldn't have the energy to do that. What's the chances when he comes home late at night, he's going to want to participate in cleaning up the kitchen or helping to make the meal? What's the chances, since he's a man, that he'll be able to perform for his wife intimately, because things are not going to be working? And he could be like amen. You shouldn't laugh at that.
I should laugh at that. That's hilarious, but true.
True.
We want those parts working.
We want everything working, because this guy is probably like a 40-year-old, right? Why would I want a 40-year-old to be coming into my office talking about, Doc, I need that Viagra? And we can give him that Viagra, and it may work a little bit, but nothing's going to work like achieving metabolic health. Mm-hmm. And by the way, for a guy, that saturated fat and that cholesterol is what turns into testosterone.
Yeah.
So you actually will benefit him in ways he's not even thinking about. Of course, he's going to lose his belly. Of course, he's going to have mental clarity and all those other things. But his wife's going to say, I don't know what's going on, but I'm happy it's happening. So let's move on to the next slide. So how do you achieve this? I think most of you guys know. I have the NEST, right? Nutrition, exercise, less stress, more sleep, how you think, and recovering from trauma, protecting your NEST model, right? Well, here it is. Nutrition is critical. And anybody who follows any of us, and by the way, Alia, thank you for allowing me to come to your channel. We actually reviewed her Carnivore labs. We're very happy with us. So if you haven't seen that video, go to Alia's channel, check that out later. It was a real nice video reviewing her labs, making us feel reassured that things are okay on that end. But a low-carb keto or carnivore diet avoids the processed foods, the sugars, the seed oils, the grains. And when you do that, you do not have spikes. So that's one way to achieve metabolic health. If you have more muscle in your body, you will be able to have a place to send that glucose if you have a little extra. So it's stored in the muscle, and the liver is glycogen, as I mentioned previously. But you won't have to store as much as fat if you have a little bit more muscle in your body. So when you have muscle mass, you actually make it more easy for you to not only utilize the glucose, but just give it a place to store other than converting it to fat. I prefer a little glycogen as opposed to fat. We talked about sleep. Listen, I don't drink a lot of coffee anymore because I had an irritable bowel that led me down this whole low carb pathway. But my body doesn't tolerate coffee as much. But guess what? I don't need coffee if I get enough sleep. Sometimes we have to get to the root cause. People come to me and they say, Doc, I don't understand why I have these bags under my eyes. Now I'll say, well, talk to me about your sleep. Oh, I only get about 4 hours of sleep. So do we really need a sleep pill or do we need to get more sleep? Sometimes we have to change our job situation if possible, so we're not doing night shift work. Or we change our job situation so we're not working 2 jobs. So
Right.
we have to really put energy into changing our lives so that it serves us. And of course, that creates stress, and too much stress, chronic stress, can then lead to too much glucose being made because you're going to get stimulated to make cortisol, and cortisol is going to tell your liver via gluconeogenesis to make more glucose. So these are some basic high-level things to think about, and they all make a difference. So if you're killing the low-carb keto or carnivore journey, you need to look at these other areas, as I did. I wasn't killing exercise, so I got me a trainer to have somebody to be accountable to. Here's the measures again. I want to quickly run through the measures again, because again, this is really important to understand metabolic health. So a little bit more detail, starting with the glucose levels. As you know, we need glucose as our fuel source, but we really want those glucose levels to be no higher than 70 to 100 when we're fasting. And you can really impact that with your diet, exercise, sleep, as I previously stated. You just want to be a nice, stable level. If you have diabetes, it's okay to go from 80 to like 120 and then in a narrow range, but you don't want that 80 to go up to 200 and 250. And then you're like on a roller coaster. Those spikes will harm you down the road. The best way to deal with this is reducing the macronutrient that causes the greatest spike. You already know what that is. It's carbs. Can you do this on a plant-based diet? The answer is yes. Dr. Rashani Sanghati, who was a previous guest, she's an Indian doctor, used to be in my health system. She's in India. Some people in India worship cows. So I'm not going to ask a person in India who worships a cow to eat a cow. That's not logical. But she's managed to put them on a vegetarian, low-carb diet, and they're achieving normal A1Cs. I'm not a big supplement guy, but my functional medicine training, when I got a master's in that, taught me that some supplements help. This is bridge therapy. So it's just like medicine, bridge therapy, cinnamon, chromium, berberine. There are others, but that's okay. But when you become metabolically healthy, you don't need supplements, trust me. And then, of course, exercise will, as I previously described, will help lower your sugar. So that's the first metabolic measure, your blood sugar. Triglycerides, that's the fat that you see floating around in your blood. And you want to get those levels under 150. More importantly, the triglyceride to HDL ratio, the HDL is a good cholesterol. You want that to be less than 2 if you divide it out, and ideally even 1. So if your triglycerides are 150, you want your HDL to be no more than 75, et cetera. So you want to keep that in mind. And what's really cool about a low carb, high fat diet, whether it's low carb, keto, or carnivore, is that it trains your body to burn fat as fuel, right? So you're going to lose belly fat. You're going to lose fat around your organs. But guess what? Triglycerides are fat. So it's going to burn triglycerides as energy. Instead of floating around in your blood, it's going to be used as fuel. And of all the things that I do to determine, if people come to me and say, Doc, I'm doing this diet, and I look at their triglycerides, if that number's not going down, then I know they're not doing the diet. It's almost unusual. Even if you have a hypertriglyceride state and your triglycerides are like 1,000 or something and you're unusual, that number's still going down. It may not get back to normal levels, but it will go down. And of course, alcohol will raise it, smoking, not being active, obviously high sugar diets and things like that. So when it comes to triglycerides, it's about low carb and exercise to improve that. And then alcohol needs to really be reduced. It's not that you can't have a Chardonnay at the end of the day. You have to listen to your body, and maybe you cut back. And in some cases, you don't drink alcohol heavily. Good news, if you're metabolically healthy, you'll probably tolerate a little glass of Chardonnay at the end of the day. That's number 2. Number 3 is the HDL. We call that the good cholesterol. And that's because It is the cholesterol that kind of, carries the cholesterol away from your arteries as opposed to towards your arteries. I don't consider any cholesterol bad, because if I'm tuck pointing my arteries because I'm trying to repair them, just like you're tuck pointing a brick house, I need an LDL to be the mortar. But I don't want my brick house to turn into a stucco house. And how do I prevent that? Number one, I have a little HDL to bring that mortar that's going towards the ground away from the house, right? So that's what's good about HDL. Number two, I don't have an inflamed house. And the inflammation of my house comes from that highly processed diet, high sugar diet. And so and that's why when you have this dietary pattern, you actually improve your cholesterol measurements overall, because things get in balance. So want to make sure you guys understand that concept. And the same thing applies to HDL as triglycerides. If you eat fatty food, you're going to train your body to burn fat, and high fat diets actually help to raise your good cholesterol. And of course, if you need fat in your diet, I did a video talking about healthy fats with Carnivore Leo, Rhonda, and we mentioned duck tallow, lard, duck fat, butter, ghee, and others as some of the best animal fats. Yes, for all you people who used to put the bacon grease on the counter and you stopped because the doctor said don't do that, I suggest you get a container that you can store your bacon grease on. And if you want your ribeye to taste really good, cook your ribeye in some bacon grease. And now you have permission to do that. And of course, the fourth one, you have a comment?
Oh, I was just thinking, yes, for bacon grease and steak. We got the people from the dock.
Yes. Yes to bacon grease. And I'll be honest, as a guy who used to be a vegetarian, I can't even believe half the stuff I teach now. But I can't argue with the science. And the science says, the Journal of the American College of Cardiology said that saturated fat does not increase your risk for heart disease. You can just Google College of Cardiology position statement on fat. You can do that right now. You'll see the article. You'll see something that the Nutrition Coalition put out there, as well as the actual journal. And not only did it not increase your morbidity, mortality, and your risk for heart disease, it reduced your risk for stroke. Bacon grease reduces your risk for stroke. Now they think we're really crazy.
Right.
That's been proven when you look at quality studies. So for all you bacon people talking about, I'm going to eat me some turkey. I'm going to eat me some turkey bacon. Give me a break. You better go get that pig and eat that bacon the way you always remember eating it. So we're on number 4 is the blood pressure, guys. And I did a video recently, and it was actually it was a podcast. And I think that's the podcast I did with Carnivore Leo, Rhonda. And that's because when she lost her 80 pounds, the main thing she was trying to solve was blood pressure. So the whole point I'm making is she did it with a high-fat diet, a low-carb diet. She didn't do it by reducing salt. So what does that tell you? Your blood pressure is a sugar problem, because the inflammation, just like your house being inflamed, and you turn your brick house into a stucco house because you keep building all that cholesterol, your blood pressure is gonna be, and your blood vessel walls are gonna be inflamed because of sugar. Your blood vessel walls will be constricted because of sugar, and by the way, high insulin levels. Your blood pressure, your blood vessel walls will hold on to salt because of sugar and high insulin levels. It's a sugar problem. And once you understand that, you'll then not be afraid of salt. The good thing about low carb, keto, carnivore is that carbohydrates attract water in your body. Low carb, keto, carnivore gets rid of water. So not only I'm giving you permission to eat fat, I'm giving you permission, unless you're salt sensitive and you respond to salt in a bad way, once you start to heal and those blood vessels are more elastic, I'm giving you permission to add salt back to your diet. So you really think we're in the twilight zone, but we're not in the twilight zone. I would argue my conventional diets are in the twilight zone. And I want to make sure you have permission to start to heal. You don't start eating a handful of salt if you're still having constricted arteries. But as you start to heal and your arteries start making that nitric oxide, which opens up your blood vessels, the nitroglycerin your doctor gives you when you're having chest pain, your body makes that naturally. So once they're not irritated, your arteries start making it again, and you can fix your blood pressure. And it's a beautiful thing to have had a blood pressure of 160 over 100, and then you go see your doctor 6 months later and it's 120 over 80. And you're doing that while reducing medication. And in many cases, getting off medication. With the side effects, going back to that man we showed you earlier, blood pressure medicine is not good for him at the end of the day, if you know what I mean. It's not good for him. So we want to take medicines as bridge therapy. Nobody on this call should stop their medicines tonight. But if you want to move towards a model where you don't have to take medicines, this is what you need to do. And then you wean off medicines and do it safely. John Singleton, who was well known for movies like Boys in the Hood, he died of a stroke because he suddenly stopped his blood pressure pills trying to do a dietary change. And this is one of the greatest African-American filmmakers of our time. And he wasn't old. I don't even think he was 50, but he stopped his medicines before he healed. So always heal first and use medicine as bridge therapy. Now we want to get to the DASH diet. You have heard of this diet, the dietary approach to stop hypertension. They finally compared this diet, which is the standard of care, to keto. And always remember, keto and carnivore are the same thing. We're just more extreme as carnivores. And I've already given you the answer to the quiz. It's a keto diet that wins. If you think about the DASH diet, they want you to consume 7 to 8 servings of grains. And if you want to Google this right now, just say DASH diet food pyramid. And when you look at the bottom of that food pyramid, it'll say 7 to 8 servings of grains. And you won't believe the examples they give you guys, Carrie and Alia. They give you examples of grains as bread. They want us to eat bread. I'm not joking. And the other example they give is cereal. I have never seen cereal growing in my backyard. It's processed garbage. And they want you to eat 8 servings of these things. The foundation of that diet pyramid has 10 servings of fruits and vegetables. Now we can even carnivores are okay with our keto brethren having non-starchy vegetables. So let's just say you cut that in half and say 5 are non-starchy. The other 5 they're saying should be fruit. And if you're not sure how much sugar is in your fruit, you take the carb number and you divide it by 4. And the average medium banana has 28 carbs. That's 7 teaspoons of sugar. It's too much sugar. A serving of grapes, a handful of grapes, 20 carbs or so, divided out 5 teaspoons of sugar. So although we say berries are okay, all those carbs in those fruit will turn into sugar. We consider fruit nature's candy. So, and if you don't believe me, let the meter talk to you. I mentioned Dennis Pollock, who is the Beat Diabetes YouTube channel, and he has a meter that he calls Mike the Meter. He doesn't use a continuous glucose monitor. If Mike the Meter says your sugar spikes after eating something, stop eating that. You don't even hear, if you don't hear nothing tonight and you have diabetes, stop eating the foods that spike your sugar. And then you'll know what to eat. It's very simple. So we know that I'm going to get to the DASH diet again, but we know exercise, we talked about that. Smoking constricts your arteries. And obviously, if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to be stressed. That's going to increase your blood sugar. That blood sugar is going to cause your insulin to spike. Here we go with the constriction, holding on to the salt, and the inflammation. Now, let's talk briefly as we're kind of wrapping up. Just a couple of more slides left. Here's the study that was done released in June of 23, just last year. This is why your doctor, your advanced practice clinician doesn't know about this, because they do not typically look at nutrition studies. They look at studies dealing with medication. So they can tell you everything about the latest medication, but they can't tell you what this study said. And so they compare very low carb. By definition, that means keto. And they compared it to the DASH diet for obesity, hypertension, and diabetes. Now, and it's a randomized trial, meaning it's a high quality study versus some survey being sent to your house. It's really important that you notice they had 3 conditions on here, but that doesn't surprise you anymore because I just told you that if you fix insulin resistance, high blood sugars, metabolic disease, you fix damn near everything, excuse my French. So you're not surprised by that, but let's look at the results of the study. So for all the doctors who are handing out DASH diet handouts, let's maybe consider doing a keto handout, because as you can see, as it relates to blood pressure, the blood pressure was reduced twice as effective with the keto diet, very low carb. The diabetes, which is the most obvious thing, because what is diabetes? You can't deal with the excessive sugar or glucose, which came from the excessive carbs and grains. Mm-hmm. So it was 3 times more effective for fixing the diabetes. And the last issue is the weight. So many people are struggling with obesity. And it was twice as effective for weight reduction. So why are we still talking about it? Oh, we're still talking about it because there's still doctors that believe saturated fat is harmful. I just told you that's a lie. We're still talking about it because some doctors think keto and things like that are bad for cancer. Well, we have plenty of, in fact, not only is it not bad for cancer, we treat cancer with keto. So we have to wake up and stop this inability to look at nutrition studies that are going to serve our patients and us. So last one is the waist circumference. Nobody really wants belly fat. All of those young ladies in that image and that gentleman, they look like they're doing pretty good when it relates to belly fat. And this is a lifetime issue. Even the metabolic health doc has to keep working out and eating right to maintain my belly. But why do we care about the abdominal belly fat? Because that is an indirect measure of fat in your organs. And for this to be considered in a healthy range, we want it to be less than 40 inches for men and less than 35 inches for our non-pregnant women. And of course, our diet and our physical activity impact it. And then we want to figure out how to lower it. Well, again, exercise and being pretty consistent. But again, going back to what I said about triglycerides, a low-carb keto or carnivore diet will train your body to burn fat as fuel. And thankfully, we were magnificently made. So when we do that, where will our body burn fat the first? The answer is where they can cause the most harm. And that place is around our belly, around those organs, not the subcute fat that's under your skin, but the ones around your liver, etc. So your body will burn that fat. So if you have a fatty liver, reducing the carbs is going to actually reverse that condition. And we don't want a fatty liver because it increases our risk for cirrhosis and liver cancer down the road. So this is the last slide. And not sure the crowd will be that big, but I pray it is. And when we go to Washington to celebrate the gift of achieving metabolic health, we're going to remind people that if you use food as medicine, we start moving our bodies, we get enough sleep, and we keep the stress in check, guys, we will do wondrous things. And so I want you guys to take this personal. Where do you have gaps? And start to fix those gaps. Before you say one word of a revolution to a family member, you start with what's in the mirror. You look in the mirror and say, am I happy with the person in the mirror? I now have heard some information that will help me heal. If you're spiritual, God has given you the message through us tonight. And what I want you to do is take that message and say, I don't want you to do everything tomorrow. You can start by saying, I'm going to start counting carbs. I'm going to get my carbs under maybe 30 or 50 a day. And if you're at 300 carbs, you don't have to be at 30 or 50 a day right away. You may need to go down to 200 for a week or two, and then you go to 100. You start your journey. Oh, you're not moving? Let's start taking a walk. And when you walk, hold your partner's hand, take a walk. If you're not with your partner, put your ear pods or whatever you got in your ears and just take a walk. let's start this journey together so we can heal the world. And I only ask that you support organizations that you believe in. Just like when you watch a YouTube channel, we all have YouTube channels, right? Support people that you believe in so that you can help spread that message. Because I'm a busy doctor. On Monday of this past week, I saw 31 people.
Whew.
Wow.
Tuesday, I saw 34. I'm not joking.
That's crazy.
That's insane. Thank God to AI and things like that help me write my notes. I don't write my notes anymore. I just let the computer write it.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's just so there's a sacrifice, guys. But when I lay down at the end of the day, whenever that is, I will know that I'm living my life purpose. And that's what I want everybody to do. And whether you're, a lawyer or the person that's, giving me the order at the fast food, we all have a purpose. I always remember this guy on the Chicago L, which is our little local train commuter system. And every time I would get on that L when I was in college, he would sing the stops. He would literally have a rap for every stop. I literally prayed that I would get on the train that he was on. His purpose was to make sure we had a wonderful train ride experience. And it seems like nothing, right? But it's a big deal because I really wanted to have that experience. And that's what this is all about. This is about all of us being able to do those things and do it and serve the communities we love. So for me, I've been given this privilege after my wife got type 1 diabetes, being a new dad, wanting my kids to be healthy, this gift of being able to help them. And that's what I'm going to do until I die. And that's why I've been privileged to get in front of people and share this message. So I really appreciate you guys for helping to spread the message. Not sure how I decided to reach out to Carrie and say, Carrie, we should do this. And then you said, I know somebody that can somebody volunteered themselves, Alia, and I really
don't know why.
Because you care. So that's what it is, guys. I just hope that provided some framework from which to understand what metabolic health is. And again, it's a gift. And I can't wait. I've never met Dr. Robert Lustig. So I'm going to be starstruck. Awesome. And I can't wait to get in front of him and some of the others. Most of I've met, but I can't wait to meet the ones I haven't. So it's going to be a good time.
It's going to be awesome. I just want to put a plug in again for donating to this project so that they have the promotion they need, or maybe some, as you were saying earlier, some people that maybe can't afford it but should go can get there. We have like 270 people watching right now. If everybody just did like $10, we would get to $2,700, and that would be an amazing, powerful flow to this project. Were we going to answer some questions? Because we did have a couple.
Yeah, sure.
These are doctory questions. Oh,
okay,
Carrie, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say something quick too. If you can't afford to donate, the Metabolic Revolution Rally website is really good, and they have lots of banners and images. So share it and get the word out. That'll really help as well. Yeah. And I just want to shout out. I know I did this last time, but huge shout out to Alia Wells, Dr. Tony Hampton. Links to both of their YouTube channels are in the descriptions below. But I said this before: the world needs more Alia Wells, but the world also needs more Dr. Tony Hamptons for sure. It's incredible what you're doing and the amount of patients you're seeing, and then you're still dedicating your time and spending your time. I said this before, but fixing my metabolic health, for me, that was a carnivore diet, changed my life forever. And I wouldn't have done it. I truly believe I never would have done it if it wasn't for good doctors like Dr. Tony Hampton. I saw some individuals doing it on YouTube. I'm like, these guys are crazy. And then I saw some of these good doctors with actual science and common sense. And I only started after that. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. The other thing, I love what you said, Dr. Hampton, about look in the mirror. The name of our documentary is Healing Humanity. And that's like crazy. That's audacious. How dare you? How are you going to heal all of humanity? It's very simple. You just look in the mirror. You heal yourself. Each one of us is responsible for healing ourselves. The ripple effect is amazing, but just heal yourself. So I love that advice as well.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what do we got?
You guys
for
are
question
awesome.
time?
You guys are awesome.
While you're looking up those questions too, I just got one quick
Sure.
question for Dr. Hampton.
Yeah.
Sure.
You mentioned earlier, saturated fat isn't bad for us, which a lot of people, myself included, thought the opposite for so long. Is it possible that not only it's not bad for us, but maybe it's good for us, or we're deficient? The reason I ask is because I had congestive heart failure and I avoided it so much. Like, I can't have any of that. And it wasn't until I started eating a proper human diet and getting more fatty meat, I feel like, Dr. Hampton, my body was just screaming like, yes, this is what you needed. It, like, my sleep improved, my testosterone went up, like my immune system got stronger. Like, I don't get sick anymore. It's anecdotal, it's not good science, but it feels like the missing part of the puzzle for me was getting that, because I did a strict ketogenic diet where it was mostly just plants. And a lot of people will say, Kerry, you would have done the same thing if you just got rid of the junk food. I did get rid of the junk food. I did that for about a year, strict ketogenic, salad for lunch, salad for dinner. But it wasn't until I added that meat that I really started to feel like a proper human.
Yeah. You know what, man? It starts with just what I said earlier about your testosterone, right? And I think people need to understand that we need cholesterol and fat in our diet to keep us healthy. And I think that it's been demonized so long that we just can't get past that. But at the end of the day, saturated fat is actually a good thing, because again, we need the fat to protect our cells and our cells. See, so when you think about your nervous system, for example, a lot of that nerve myelin is basically made of saturated fat. Mm-hmm. So we need it for that purpose to help. It's almost like if you don't have the myelin, you think about conditions like MS and things like that. If those myelin's not working, it's almost like a nerve conduction. It's like a train track that won't work properly. So we need saturated fat for that. Saturated fat also has a lot of vitamins in it, those fat soluble vitamins. I remember, like, when I was in school, I remember DAKE, D-A-K-E, so vitamin D, A, K, and E. Those are really important. So we really need it for that reason as well. And I just think that if we understand that it's not harmful, then it gives us permission to use it. I even think about, I did a lecture on the mitochondria at the Symposium for Metabolic Health, and saturated fat was one of the things that helps your mitochondrial function really well. So that's another thing. And this is the thing that's really ironic, because a lot of people in the plant-based community really focus on LDL and cholesterol and things like that. But when you look at the metabolic measures of health, what you find is that a diet that's high in fat, including saturated fat, does a really good job of, again, taking that triglyceride to HDL ratio and improving it, taking those small particles and lowering those. So you just have all of these benefits that people just don't understand. And while I was doing that lecture at the Symposium for Metabolic Health, I talked about energy sources, right? And you can get energy from fat, and you can get energy from glucose and carbs, but the amount of energy that you get from fat is way higher, probably 10 times as much energy, which is why people who are on this type of diet don't get hungry, because they have energy just sitting there in a way that you wouldn't have if you relied on grazing. You eat food that raises your sugar temporarily, then it goes down, then you're on a roller coaster. So if it was up to me, I would lean towards a higher fat diet, particularly for mental health, particularly for neurodegenerative diseases like dementia, and even for cancer. I think that is really important. And if our babies thrive on fat, right? If their diet is primarily just fat, for brain development, ironically, then maybe adults will still thrive on fat as well. So I think, and the key is when you eat fat in your diet, it's best to go to natural sources of fat. We always talk about seed oils because you take seeds and you process it. It's better to do natural oils, like I mentioned before, beef tallow and lard and, the bacon grease stuff, the duck fat, the ghee, the butter. And if you're plant-based, it's okay to do avocado, olive oil as well. I think those are really important as well. Olive oil, coconut oil, and avocado oil. So fat is our friend. Fix your fear of fat.
Love it. Thank you.
I'll just add that my daughter loves a raw steak. We will eat it almost raw with the fat. It's cooked on the outside. I have to have it at least cooked on the outside, but she'll ask for the fat and she wants the really red part. Give me the part that's the most red. She's 6. And by the way, she was nursed for 3.5 years. That was a lot of work. And I complained the last 1.5 years, but it was well worth it. She's the healthiest out of all of us. If we get sick, she's like an hour later better, and while the rest of us are suffering.
Yeah, you've given her a good foundation, so she's good.
Yeah, she's good. She's good. I would like another call for any donations. I've put the GoFundMe and they're in the descriptions. Please do your donations. Thank you. Okay, here's the first question. Karen, what is the connection between low thyroid and A1C?
Yeah, your people who have, I'll be honest, of the things that you think about that are hard to fix, then it's hard to not have to take thyroid supplements, or should I say medication, if you need it. Now, having said that, the way I look at the connection is it depends. If you're talking about a Hashimoto's, that's an autoimmune disease. So in that setting, your risk for autoimmune disease are higher if you have a high A1C, high glucose level, and that's usually caused by your diet. That's going to irritate those tight junctions in your gut. Proteins that you shouldn't absorb are going to get absorbed, and your body's going to see those proteins and attack itself. So my first part of that question is people who have autoimmune thyroid disease are going to more likely have it if they have insulin resistance, diabetes, high A1C numbers. So that's kind of number one. When you're trying to balance any of your hormones, you have your hypothalamus, then your pituitary, and then you have your thyroid gland, right? All of those connections, and they work much better when you have a diet that has sufficient cholesterol and fat in it. So any hormone, testosterone, estrogen, thyroid, adrenal, works better if the pituitary has adequate fat in the diet. So having a person on a diet like that, they're going to work better, and there's going to be less stress and less things to kind of figure out. So I think if you get your A1C into a normal range, you're going to make that, hypothalamus, pituitary, axis, we call it, much more effective. So if a person is trying to optimize their health and have less issues with their thyroid, maybe need less thyroid medicine, this dietary pattern is usually a good place to start.
I have a question.
Yes.
Dr. Hampton. Do you know the percentage, if people are diagnosed with a hypothyroid condition, the percentage that's autoimmune that gets misdiagnosed as just a thyroid condition?
Yeah. I think the answer is doctors simply do not check for the thyroid autoimmune stuff like they should. So the percentage, I can't give you an exact number, but my assumption is that it's very high, because when I started doing this after my functional medicine training, and I just made it routine to check it on more people than I had previously, a large percentage of them So I would not be surprised at all that that percentage is higher. But the goal is we want to empower people to do something about their circumstance. So if you find yourself in a situation, what happens when you get that diagnosis? What you do is you say, let me optimize my metabolic health. And when you do that, you not only are better able to manage that thyroid condition, but what's also true is that when people have one autoimmune condition, they tend to have another.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something, it could be, I mean, any autoimmune thing you can think of, lupus, they may have GI issues, maybe they have gluten intolerance or, Crohn's, we can go down the list. So because that's true, it's so important that we reduce our risk for autoimmune diseases by changing our diet. Because when you change your diet, you fix your gut so that your risk for leaky gut, as an example, go down, which means that if you are on your way to another autoimmune condition, you're probably less likely to get that autoimmune condition. But more importantly, you're less likely to feel the effects of that autoimmune condition. Because a lot of times you may have something, but it's just not manifesting because it's not further enough down the road. And so you can actually put stuff into remission simply by eating well.
Hallelujah. Here's the next question. Carrie, you want to read that one?
Who's Your Carnivore? Brett, awesome YouTube channel. Love Brett from Who's Your Carnivore. He said, I got blood work and my average blood sugar is 131, A1C 6.1, but fasting insulin 11.9, HDL 51, triglycerides 46, and LDL 131. I'm strict carnivore. Why is my blood sugar so high? Gluconeogenesis? ?
Yeah, great question. I think that if you were to talk to people like Dr. Ben Bikman, who's done research in this area, he would say that we're not sure yet, but we're speculating is that if your A1C is a little higher, right? And I guess it's fairly accurate based on what your blood sugars are doing, then maybe, let me say this first. If you're not sure if your A1C is accurate, you can get a A1C on the albumin. So you can take the hemoglobin out of the picture altogether, and there's a way to get a albumin, glycosylated albumin test. So that's something you can ask your doctor for. But in your case, I think this is probably accurate. So what Dr. Ben Bikman would say is this. What they found is that the dietary pattern where you're doing carnivore is so nutrient rich that it's possible it is extending the life of the hemoglobin beyond the 90 days that's typical. And the number of days you may end up with is 135 days, which will then falsely elevate your A1C number in that setting. So that's kind of a proposed rationale. There's also some people who don't break down protein as effectively. So because this diet tends to maybe have a little bit more protein than you were used to, it's possible that your intolerance of that, not in a bad way, but just in general, could then lead to what you just said in the comments. You may be converting some of that protein to glucose, and that's gluconeogenesis in the liver. So I think you're on the right track. Unfortunately, up to what I understand to be true, we don't have the scientific data to clarify that. What we're trying to do in the carnivore community is to understand what normal is. It is possible we'll find that down the road, an A1C that's slightly higher for a carnivore is a healthy A1C. I would be more concerned if it was a little bit higher than that. And then I would also look at the individual. And some people who are really not in great metabolic shape will take longer to start to normalize things. So it sounds like you've been doing it for a little bit, but I would continue to give it more time. And let's go back to protecting your nest. Let's talk about your stress level. Let's talk about your sleep. Let's talk about your exercise. And if you do some of those other strategies, you may also be able to impact the numbers beyond just the diet. Carnivore is amazing. Keto is amazing, maybe less amazing, but keto is good. And then low carb is great. But it's not a miracle. And you have to look at all the other aspects of your life. Am my relationship healthy? Do I protect my emotions? Guys are not good with their emotions. Sometimes you got to have that therapist or life coach in your life. So make sure other parts of your life are good, and then add to those, and you may be able to do better just with that. But I just think we don't have the data to say that there's an issue yet. My assumption that if you measure other measures of metabolic health, like the triglyceride to HDL ratio, if you look at his triglycerides, 46 divided by 51, his ratio is less than 1. It's probably like a 0.9 or something. So, amen. So if that's true, maybe you get some particle sizes. Maybe you do the apolipoprotein beta A ratio. Maybe you do a C-peptide. Maybe you do, a homocysteine, a SED rate. Look at some inflammation markers to find out if everything else is okay. If everything else is okay, then you need not worry. If you find that you're finding gaps in those other areas, then you probably need to worry, because if it was a problem, it would manifest in other ways.
Right. He added this extra comment. I'll pop it up for Carrie.
Oh, yeah.
I am a recovering type 2 diabetic, so I could still be a little insulin resistant, and that's what's causing my blood sugar to be a little high.
Absolutely. Thank God he's recovering. And for the type 1s out there, like my wife, yes, you can achieve a normal A1C as a type 1.
Oh,
The
wow.
average A1C for a type 1 in this country is 8.5. That means their average blood sugar is 200. With a low-carb keto or carnivore diet, you can achieve an A1C of 5.6. If you don't believe me, just Google type 1 diabetes trial, and like Eric Westman or Dykman, and the 316 people in that trial had an average A1C of 5.6 for all type 1s, and they were consuming about on average 36 carbs per day. You cannot achieve that just by taking insulin, because you'll never match those spikes with the amount of insulin that you're giving. So here's hope restored, because you lose years of life when you have an A1C that averages 8.5. So we really want to give people an opportunity to heal. There's a guy by the name of Dr. Keith Runyon. He's a nephrologist who wrote a great book that's designed to help people with type 1. And there's also Dr. Eric Westman's Adapt a Life course with Dykman and his son, who are kind of giving people tips on how to do it. Type 1 Grit Diabetes Group on Facebook is also a great resource. And of course, Dr. Bernstein's book, Richard Bernstein, who is like 92 and not having any diabetes complications as a type 1. So there's a lot of hope out here, which is why the metabolic revolution is important, because it's helping to put in front of people things they hadn't heard before, because the average endocrinologist does not believe that you can get the A1C to normal. I promise you they don't, because they think you're going to have hypoglycemia, because their whole model is around medication, right? But whether you're type 1 or type 2, if you eat a 40 carb meal and you're trying to match that with the right amount of insulin, good luck. You're not going to do it. But if you eat a 4 carb meal, or in the carnivore's case, 0 carbs, you do have to consider the protein, but you do not have to worry about that spike and chasing it with insulin and either undershooting or overshooting. So you're either hypoglycemic or hyperglycemic. And that's what I love about this community, is that you can hear stories, go look at a study and say, if they can do it, why can't I?
Exactly. And here is the next question while I'm still looking for more questions.
Bigwig, $20. Thank you so much. Thanks for the chat, everyone. Carrie, I added the magnesium and one more element packet a day, and the lower leg cramps have gone away. Oh, that's
I
wonderful.
guess it's not a question.
Yeah, it's a moment. First of all, if you call yourself big wig, that's what I'm talking about. Not surprised at all. Magnesium relaxes everything. It relaxes your ability to sleep, so you sleep better. Your stress level gets relaxed. If you take magnesium, you have regularity. So number 2 is easier. Relaxes your muscles. And again, if you're on a keto or carnivore diet, it's nice to, you may need to replace some of the electrolytes, which are going to leave your body because of the nature of this diet, because of the insulin level being low. And when your insulin levels are low, you tend to get rid of the electrolytes a little bit more aggressively.
Good stuff. Here's one. Carol Newsom, is bacon considered protein or fat?
Bacon is considered a gift from God.
Next question.
The answer is it's both. It's both. It's pretty high fat, but it's a little bit of both. So, and that's what it's all about, eating the essential amino acids, protein, essential fatty acids, fat. So keep eating your bacon.
Yeah.
Keep eating your bacon.
Carnivore Health says, Dr. Hampton, what do you recommend for hypothyroidism? Been high fat carnivore for over 5 years. I take iodine with electrolytes.
Okay. So first of all, again, I think most of my patients have to take medicine. Some will stick with the traditional levothyroxine, which is Synthroid. Others will want to think of the more natural forms like Armour thyroid. I personally am not obsessed with the more natural ones versus the synthetic, but it is true that the medicines are synthetic. So the first thing you want to do is what you're doing, which is your diet. You want to, make sure your gut is healthy so you don't have leaky gut, and you're going to eat a low carb diet to do that. You're not going to eat processed foods and grains and things like that. I love things like this is when probiotics may be a good idea for your gut. And some people will take probiotics. I tend to use a company called Protrin. I actually interviewed Natasha Trinev, who is over that company. She's the mother of probiotics. And I also believe that your gut, because again, I'm thinking thyroid, your gut may have been the cause. I think bone broth is great. So I would sip on some bone broth periodically, chicken or beef. Obviously, if you make your own, that's best. But I think that's really important. I personally don't like fiber in general because I think it irritates the gut. So I would stay away from things like that as well. Some of my patients take supplements. Some people, when you think of the thyroid, you think about iodine. So some will take, 300 micrograms or so of iodine every day to kind of help. I like, because I mentioned earlier that your thyroid deals with like your hypothalamus pituitary axis. It's got a lot to do with hormones. Obviously, we're talking about the thyroid gland as a hormone. So one of the best supplements for hormones is ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is a good hormone because it really is an adaptogen, meaning that it helps to regulate all kinds of other hormones as well. And I think selenium is another stuff. So if you're doing supplementation, these are things I would think about. But for the most part, I think that the diet is going to be the money for you. And I would just focus on that more than anything.
All right. Kelly T asks, my folate was 3.1. How can I raise that?
It's all about diet, right? So, first of all, this is, I always talk about your diet being like the key to everything, but I also talk about supplements and medicine being like your bridge, right? So you want to, it's okay to take folic acid. We give folic acid to all of our pregnant ladies to prevent neural tube defects. So I think that that's a good place to go. However, as a carnivore, I'm always looking at, well, what's got folate in it? Also folic acid. And I think about beef, I think about liver. Yeah, some of the plants have folic acid in it, but you may not get the full absorption because of the anti-nutrients. So beef liver is probably going to be your best friend. And if you can't tolerate that, which many people don't, I get it, they have plenty of high quality beef liver supplements. If you're okay with eggs, I think eggs are another good source of folic acid. So I would actually do that as well. But I wouldn't be as impressed with the plants because they do have it in it. And if you did a Google search and look for sources of folic acid, you're probably going to see a lot of plants. I suggest you focus on the beef liver and the eggs as your primary source because you may not get the full benefit of the plants.
All right. Spirit Junkie, I just did a $20 anonymous donation. Let's support everyone who's trying to get a healthy message out to heal others. Awesome. Thank you. I just want to add to that real quick. Just imagine $20, what that could do for the Metabolic Revolution Rally.
Mm-hmm.
So many people here are big fans of my good friend Bill Knott in Alaska. 700 pounds, stuck in his house for 5, going on 6 years. He's down 260 pounds. He's outside in the beauty of Alaska, and he is... Talk about fixing your metabolic health. He's fixing his metabolic health, and he's healing so quickly, inspiring a lot of people. But just think about what $20. How many other Bill Knotts are out there hopeless in the world right now?
Too many.
Too many. There's only one Bill Knott, but there's a lot of people, sadly, that are hopeless like Bill was. So
yeah.
Julie said, wow, such great info. Yeah.
I put that there because I wanted to also acknowledge her because she did a donation as well. So I put that there because I couldn't find her comment about it, but there you go.
Thank you, Julie. I'm
going to pop up. I'm just getting the GoFundMe so we can look and see who else donated. But keep going.
Amy asked if we're only answering donation questions. No, we're answering all the questions. So just put a Q next to it.
Yeah. Oh, hers is down. I found.
Oh, it's down there. Okay.
Yeah, here it is.
Oh, here's a good question. Sorry, I'll jump back to that one. Dr. Hampton, will the Metabolic Revolution Rally be live streamed for those of us who cannot make it to DC on the 13th of October?
Right. As of right now, I don't think it will be. However, what I would do is refer back to the website because I know that once it's held, we'll make it available. But in terms of live streaming, they didn't make that part of the conversation. So, but I would check the website because if it is going to be live streamed, they're going to put that up close and in front of you. So that'll be wonderful. So, but at this point, I think the answer is I don't think so.
All right. Metabolicrevolution.org is the website too, if anyone wants to check it out. Texas lovely lady, when does Healing Humanity come out? That is a question I get every single day. I appreciate it. We're aiming for the middle of next year. The premise of the documentary is to follow people like 1 year. Bill just hit 1 year. There's a couple other individuals that haven't quite hit a year yet. So that's why this is taking a little bit longer. But we've filmed 32 interviews so far, including the wonderful Dr. Hampton on the call right now, who, by the way, I can't wait to share his words and his story in our documentary. So we're aiming for the summer of next year. It'll be worth the wait.
Exactly.
Sorry,
should we look at this really quick?
Yeah,
I can see it better on my laptop in front of me than here on the screen, actually. But let's see. Karen Westerman made a donation. Renee Shove made a donation. Anonymous for 20. Sue Hull made a donation. Dr. Nelson Vasquez for $50. Yay! Anonymous donation for $50. Yay! Everyone's donations get a yay. Yay! I just wanted to pop that up there, even though nobody can see it, but there you go.
That's cool. It's cool how it's like real time. You can see those donations pop up.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's kind of cool. I love that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Speaking of Dr. Nelson, hello, Dr. Hampton, Ollie, and Carrie. I just donated at the link posted. Also, anything I can help with, I am game, even sweeping the floors. That's awesome.
Aww.
Wow. Hello.
Shout out Dr. Nelson. He's incredible.
Wow. We're
going to eventually do something.
Yeah. Dr. Nelson, did you hear Dr. Hampton? You got to go on his podcast. That'd be amazing.
We do that. Let's make that happen.
So Dr. Nelson, I believe, has been practicing for 40 years. I think Dr. Hampton, you're going on 30 years.
Is that, yeah, who knew, right? Yeah, it'll be 30 years next year. It's been 29 years. It's insane. Yeah.
Wow.
I need to
I
get
had
my walking stick, man.
right. I had Dr. Nelson on my channel, and he was trying to calculate the number of patients he's seen over 40 years.
Oh my
And it was incredible. I
Wow,
imagine
big
it's probably
number.
similar to you, Dr. Hampton, with the
Big
number of
number.
patients.
I'm happy he's out there doing that great work, and we're following in his footsteps. So he's leading the way.
And we got a question from Sherry, $5. Thank you for that. When trying to stay in medical ketosis for autism, is it better to do high fat lion or low sugar HIH? Is it? I don't know if that stands for something.
I'm not sure, but I can still comment. When it comes to ketosis, I mentioned it earlier. There are certain things that benefit from being in ketosis. Number one, anything dealing with mental, and I would put autism in the mental space. You want to be in ketosis. We think about people like Amber O'Hearn, who's on Twitter, brilliant lady who has bipolar and is not taking any medicine, which is insane. I mean, and she has to stay in ketosis to stay in that lane. People who have cancer and people who deal with neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's, Huntington's, etc. Having said that, the goal, when you think about when you're measuring your ketones, you don't want to use a breath test, you don't want to use a urine test, you want to use a blood test. We love Keto Mojo because they support the low carb community. It's a great company. So you want it to be, we typically think ketosis is in the 0.5 range. But for these mental health conditions, probably want to be in the 1.5 to 3 millimolar range. You also want to have a tight fasting glucose in the 70 to 90 range, as opposed to 70 to 100. And then you have this, glucose ketone index you can measure. And you want to make sure that number is less than 3. So people in this category should be measuring blood sugars, ketones, and glucose ketone index, and try to get those into a therapeutic range. You may need Dr. Georgia Ede or somebody like that to walk with you, because so that's a long answer to the question. The short answer is you just need to be in ketosis. So it doesn't have to be. So carnivore is a keto diet. So there are times when you may have to increase the fat percentage to make sure you're in ketosis. Other than that, I think you'll be in good shape. But use those tools to help you measure so that you can be where you need to be. One of my favorite shows is Love on the Spectrum. It's on Netflix. You ever seen that?
I've seen it. I loved it.
Love that show. My wife loves it. So I want all people on the planet, whether they have a mild autism or more severe, to find love and to have a normal life. And this is one of the most underutilized ways to do it, because most doctors who treat autism probably don't know what we're talking about. But it's going to make everything better. And it's going to level them off so that when they're having their date, just like on the show, they're more likely to be calm and be able to be present. And I just love that. So if you guys haven't checked out that, you'll get a kick out of that.
I love that you recommended that show. I really like it as well. It's really cool.
I'm going to start watching it right after this.
You're gonna just feast on it.
Yeah.
So Ali, did I miss any other questions?
Yes, yes, you did.
Okay.
That's okay. That's my job. Here you go.
There we go. Amy Hosp, the liberty of it all. I'm doing carnivore and have less than 5 carbs a day and usually around 2 carbs at the most. Is that okay? 10 years out from RNY, 8.5 months carnivore, 49 pounds, still down 100.
Cool. And I think the messaging, as much as we are shouting out carnivore from the rooftops, everybody doesn't have to be carnivore. However, you don't have to eat carbs ever to live and thrive and to be healthy. So never worry about whether or not you have to eat carbs. The question becomes, if you're able to add back plants, which plants should you add back? There's an app which is more for irritable bowels for people like myself with my history, but it's called Monash, Monash app. It's an app for irritable bowel. I bring it up because what's cool about it is that it'll tell you what's the chances that the dairy is going to bother you? What's the chances that, and what you can do is start to, if you decide to add back, you'll know how to do it in a way that'll more likely not affect you negatively. Having said that, you never have to add back. If you're thriving, the worst thing that'll happen to you is probably just making sure you have enough electrolytes. Most people in the carnivore community do not have to supplement much else. Now, I supplement with omega-3 because I do not eat enough seafood. So I may have a high quality omega-3. I use a company called Carlson's on Amazon. And other than that, it's electrolytes, it's the omega-3 and the vitamin D3, K2. I just don't think that I get enough vitamin D, so I'll do that. But for the most part, I don't have a bag of supplements. And I think that most people will do just fine with 0 carbs. So I wouldn't worry about the 5 carbs or the 2 carbs. I wouldn't worry about that at all.
Here is the next one. I can answer this one.
Yeah.
Too much magnesium will give you the poops.
I haven't had dinner yet, so easy.
But maybe we need a doctor's perspective on this.
Well, no, I think your perspective is spot on. All the supplements that we consume in this particular case, Element will have magnesium, and yes, for some people, they can't tolerate it. Now, if you talk to Dr. Eric Westman, who will be at the Revolution as well, he focuses on salt because that's probably the most important electrolyte that you worry about. So, and if you listen to Dr. Finney, Steve Finney, and others, they would say that we need to get in at least 5 to 7 grams of salt a day if we're doing this diet. So I think so if you can't tolerate magnesium by mouth, you may want to put magnesium cream on your body. If you have an ache somewhere, right? Just use that. And that may not, because it's not going through your belly, it'll still get absorbed and benefit you, but it may not give you the loose stools that you're worried about. Because Element, relative to taking a magnesium separate, shouldn't be too bad, but you're just probably really sensitive to it. And so I would go in that direction, make sure you get enough salt, and then see if you can do a cream or oil and see how you do. It's an experiment.
Here's the next question, which is perfect for the last question.
Hello. Hello.
It's is there a good natural diuretic? I was taking a prescription one, but would rather do something natural.
Yeah, well, I think you guys already know the answer to it. The best natural diuretic is what we're, I think in some ways our diet is the natural diuretic. I mean, if you think about it, if you are losing electrolytes, so let's go back to what I said earlier. Carbohydrates has the word hydrate. It attracts water in your body. It attracts salt in your body, magnesium, potassium, etc. Low carb, keto and carnivore gets rid of those things. So the diet is a natural diuretic. Now, having said that, although I don't tolerate coffee as much as I'd like to, first of all, I love coffee. Let's be clear about that. If I could drink coffee every day, I would. Trust me. Shout out to Dunkin' and Starbucks with their prices. It's amazing. I thought that Dunkin' would just go out of business with Starbucks, but it never happened. If anything, their lines got longer. It's amazing. We have a Dunkin' right across from my clinic. But so coffee is a natural diuretic. And I don't think coffee's bad for you. So let me just say that out loud. Tea, in some cultures where people live the longest, like Japan and China, they drink a ton of tea, particularly green and black tea. That's a natural diuretic. And for those people who are okay with plants, I think it's okay to do things like parsley and dandelion extract. Those are the things that come to mind. There may be others that we can Google, but those are the things I think about when people are trying to diurese and get rid of fluid. And I don't blame you, because some of the weight that we struggle with is water weight. But if you're on a keto or carnivore diet, you will be diuresing quite nicely. So.
All right, I'm going to see the next question here. I asked what that meant. Repeat those measures, like the measurements. I asked if that meant for the measurements. Let me see.
The labs, you mean, or
the labs, or like the gut measurement for metabolic health? Yeah, please clarify, Julie.
Yeah, maybe they're talking about the measurements for metabolic syndrome, maybe, and maybe we can just think about that part. But let me say both. Let me just do both, and I'll say the things that we measure for metabolic health, right? We start with the most common thing, which is A1C. If you have an A1C that's off, then you're going to have issues with that. Then we think about a C-peptide is a great measure of metabolic health. Triglyceride to HDL ratio is a good measure for metabolic health. Your apoprotein B to A ratio is a good measure of metabolic health. And I like inflammatory markers like homocysteine, set rate, C-reactive protein. Those are good measures of metabolic health, because you don't want to have inflammation in your body. When it comes to your blood pressure, going back to metabolic syndrome, you're looking at a blood pressure of 120/70 as a good place to be. We always think about 140/90, but you want to be a little bit lower than that. So that's the kind of like the blood pressure. You want your triglycerides to be less than 150. You want your good cholesterol to be greater than, it's the HDL cholesterol, I should say that out loud. And you want that to be, over 40 and 50, depending if you're a male or female. And then for the waist circumference, is 35 inches for women and 40 inches for men. And those are the basic things that you want to think about. And of course, your fasting glucose, you want that to be between 70 and 100. So those are things you want to be thinking about. And you don't want to have any of them off, ideally. So is there clarification there?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't put the question. Was asking about the measures Dr. H listed for brain health, blood sugar, ketones, and glucose. What range to stay in?
Okay, cool. So we're talking about if you want. Now, again, if you are not dealing with mental illness, neurodegenerative diseases, or cancer, you shouldn't worry as much about this, right? You just want to be on a low-carb diet. As long as your blood sugars are better and you have diabetes, you're good. As long as your blood pressure is getting better, you're good. But if you want to be in ketosis, you want your blood sugar glucose number to be between 70 and 90. You want to be in ketosis, and you want to be at the minimum at 0.5 millimolars. But if you have mental illness, you want to be between 1.5 and 3 millimolars to be in ketosis. And then you do a glucose ketone index, and I think that number needs to be less than 3 or so. So those are the numbers that you want to keep in mind, and it'll ensure that you're okay. But it's really important that most people know that you don't have to be in ketosis. But if you have those conditions and you're treating cancer or something, you want to be in ketosis.
I'll pop up the next question for Carrie. Here you go.
So can nitric oxide be an indication of metabolic health?
Yes. Your arteries naturally make nitric oxide in the arterial walls. And when you have insulin resistance, you're gonna, and that's, so hyperinsulin, so it starts with carbs, excessive carbs, then it goes to hyperinsulin state. Too much insulin, just like too much alcohol, will make you resistant. So if I drink alcohol every day, I'm good for the first week. The next week, I need 2 drinks. The third week, I need 3 drinks. I'm hanging with the guys from the old neighborhood all of a sudden. So, and the same is true for insulin. The more you're making, the more you're going to become resistant. So hyperinsulin states leads to insulin resistance. That then leads to the constriction and irritation of the arterial walls, which is where your nitric oxide is made. So if you're not making nitric oxide in your arterial walls, you will indirectly be stating that you have poor metabolic health. The moment you get rid of the root cause, which is excessive glucose floating around in your arteries, causing the glue effect, glycation, advanced glycation end products, and all of this oxidative stress occurs, leading to you not making nitric oxide. So the simple answer to the question is, the answer is a yes.
All right, William Scott, $10. Thank you. 5/29/2024, A1C 7.6 as of 9/26, 5.8. No sugar, no starch, diet, no drugs.
Yay! That sounds like Vinny Tortorich. No sugar, no grains. He'll be one of the speakers. Vinny Tortorich, one of the first podcasts I was a guest on. So he's a old school pioneer, probably has 2,000 podcast episodes or more, making us seem like we're just babies.
Right? He's done some excellent documentaries as well.
Fat, a documentary 1 and 2. I was actually on the Beyond Impossible documentary. Nina Teicholz was in that too. And he just released another one about keto processed foods. In fact, if you search his name on Amazon, I can't think of the title, but it's dealing with using fake keto foods. And we don't believe in that. So I would check that out. You can rent it or buy it on, I think it's about an hour, but it's, we want to support what he's doing.
Absolutely. Kale question, at any point, do you have to ramp up your exercise due to a stall?
I know this gentleman. He's actually one of my patients. Shout out to Kenneth, who also was a guest on the podcast, and he was able to share. In fact, he's the one who I did a video about being Looney Tunes for Carnivore, because he came to the office with a Looney Tunes t-shirt on. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, so the answer
that's Kale. Yeah, now I am. Yeah, awesome.
And he has a YouTube channel, by the way. So click on his that name you see and check out his channel. It's a new channel, and he does a lot of walk and talk. He's a carnivore. But at the end of the day, the answer is yes. When I did my obesity training, exercise was the diet, what you did to actually maintain your weight loss. So when you get a stall, it's also a great thing to do when you have a stall, to kind of rev up your metabolic, your machinery. So I encourage, now he does a lot of walking when he does his videos. So he'll absolutely he's living what he's preaching here. But at the end of the day, yeah, you wanna use that as one of the many things to deal with stalls, and making sure you're sleeping okay, making sure you have sufficient fat in your diet, because again, this is a carnivore, is a keto diet. Making sure you're getting enough electrolytes, all of these types of things. Not using, as Vinny would say, fake keto products, because if you have a keto bread, which is 14 total carbs, 1 net carb, and you eat 10 pieces of that bread, that's 140 carbs, but it's only 10 net carbs. What logical person thinks that that's going to go well? It's not. So avoid keto products. Use them as indulgences when you want to indulge, but don't consider them health food. Just like we don't consider Impossible Burgers, Beyond Meat burgers, health food is processed food. Eat real food from the earth that's grazing the earth, flying above the earth, swimming on the earth. And if you're into plants, that's growing on the earth. But stay away from those processed foods because it'll cause a stall for many people.
I tried meat only for many months. However, after a few months, I found myself with a stomach infection that flagell cleared. But even after the infection, I continued to get the runs with meat only.
So we're getting some diarrhea problems on a carnivore diet. And I think it's important that the first thing is, are we eating too much fat? That's the first thing I would worry about. Are we getting the electrolytes that we need? So if you're not doing electrolytes, I think we need to revisit that. Are you hydrating sufficiently? And make sure that your meat I really think you should be on high fat meat, because I'm telling you, if you're eating lean meat, that's probably going to be a process. I've seen people do well by also drinking broths while they're, so instead of replace some of that, because the broth will kind of coat and heal your stomach a little bit and help things go a little better. I think if you give your belly a rest and do intermittent fasting, I think that'll help a little bit too. But a lot of people with diarrhea really have to be careful with the fat, and it may be too much for your body to handle because sometimes you just don't digest it well. The other thing I think about is your ability to deal with the digestive enzymes that you need to even digest the fat. So sometimes you need to have a bile supplement like Bile Ox to help your body do some digestion. And while you're going through that transition phase, you may eventually tolerate it better and not have to take a supplement. So everybody's different. And I would play around with that type of stuff. Some people need to be in a ketovore state, and they do better than a hardcore carnivore state. But I would give your body a chance to adapt before I would give up.
All right. Dr. Hampton, are you good for another question or two? I just want to ask because they sometimes they just keep coming. And
I know. Give it a couple of more, and then I'll get back to the.
Maybe we'll do a little speed round here.
Yeah.
CL Sue, $10. My friend insists eating carnivore will cause colon cancer and will upset diverticulitis. Is any of that true?
No, I don't think so. Again, we have to speak to keto because of the lack of carnivore studies, right? Diverticulitis is an inflammatory disease. Carnivore is an anti-inflammatory disease. I would argue fiber, which is what they recommend for these things, causes more irritation than the other way around. If you eat a steak, you're going to absorb almost all of it. You're not going to really give the food a chance to get trapped in those little diverticular pouches because you're going to completely use the entire steak. When you have all that other stuff floating around from plants, they can get trapped in the diverticula. When it comes to colon cancer, most of the studies that showed a correlation between red meat and colon cancer were observational. And when they look at randomized controlled trials, they show no real correlation between cancer and and red meat. So I think, but again, if you talk to the average doctor, they're going to keep saying the same thing because they didn't get the memo. So and the World Health Organization didn't get the memo. So it's really discouraging to know that these doctors and these organizations are still using old data. But if you look at new data, you shouldn't have to worry.
All right. Lisa, my doctor just gave me the DASH diet. I'm just starting my metabolic health journey. What is the best way to do it?
Well, we just did, during the earlier part of the presentation, we did compare DASH diet to keto. And if you search DASH versus keto or go back in the earlier part of the discussion with the slides, you'll find that the DASH diet was not as effective as keto, and Carnivore's a keto diet. It was keto was twice as effective for weight loss and hypertension, and 3 times more effective for diabetes. There's nothing wrong with your doctor. It's just that your doctor probably didn't hear about that study. I would go online, find that study, print it, and just say, hey, I'm thinking about doing keto or carnivore, because I wouldn't say carnivore. They probably couldn't take that. Just say keto. Just go with the study, and then you do what you want to do. But at the end of the day, I would hand them that study, because it's nice to educate our doctors in a respectful manner and say, hey, I've been doing some research. Thank you for that advice about the DASH diet. And I just came across this study. What's your thoughts on this? Because it seems like this other diet may be more effective.
All right. But Dr. Tony, aren't general trends of your labs important for health monitoring?
It is. That's why when I start with patients, I have an obesity clinic. We always get baseline, and we want to see where they are so that they can see improvement. But more importantly, I use it to not only help keep the patient motivated, but also when they see the endocrinologist and the cardiologist and other people who are going to try to put them on medicine, it gives them tools to have an adult conversation. And if they decide to move in a direction contrary to another person's advice, they at least have the data to support that. So I do think that trends are important. I wouldn't go crazy once you kind of know where you are, particularly once you've achieved metabolic health. You can start spreading out those tests, but it's nice to just get a feel for the impact of this dietary pattern.
All right. All right. Looks like we got just two more here. Please explain how Atkins differs from keto. Was personally asked that question, was unsure how to answer 5 weeks into carnivore.
Yeah, it's, I'll be honest, I consider Atkins a dirtier form of keto, where the emphasis was more on, eat a whole lot of red meat. And of course, they're both suggesting reduce the carbs, but we, in a keto community, we consider our dietary pattern a little cleaner. And that's when we start talking about seed oils and even the quality of the meat. Although I don't think the quality of meat is important for like diabetes and hypertension. It may be important for cancer, but I think it's just a higher quality. And also keto, in order to be in ketosis, you need to be at the minimum. Like Atkins doesn't focus on being in ketosis per se. So you want to get your carbs less than 50 grams a day for 70, 80% of people. And you need to be less than 20 or 30 a day if you want 100% chances of being in ketosis. So I think they both are low carb diets, but the keto diet is really focused on trying to get people into ketosis, because we do believe that for the conditions I mentioned earlier, dealing with the nervous system, mental health, and cancer, we think that being in ketosis has a therapeutic effect, where with Atkins, it's more about weight loss, diabetes, and just reducing the carbs.
All right. And then we have one from Amy. I have trouble with fat because of gastric bypass. Cheese doesn't bother me, so I'm upping my fat with cream cheese, sour cream, and things like that, and coconut oil. These are easier on digestion.
She needs to definitely be, when I mentioned ox bile, they have pancreatic enzymes. She's going to need that, because your surface area for absorption, like you have the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum of the small intestine, right? And then you have the colon. And so if you think about a gastric bypass, it's going to come, what would be a great exercise for her is to search what's absorbed in the part of the intestine that was removed or bypassed, right? And for example, I know that the ileum deals with a lot of the fats, which is why that bile ox would be important. So if some of my ileum was removed, then I already know that there may be an issue with absorption of that in that part of the intestine. And then you may have to supplement your way to making up the difference, because you have literally bypassed a large percentage of your colon and intestine. So that's how I would approach this. Right? So you'll never be the same. So one of the reasons why, as an obesity doctor, I try to start with nutrition before Ozempics, before the phentermines, and certainly before a sleeve or gastric bypass, because there's downstream consequences. you'll never be able to absorb what you previously absorbed because you removed your ability to absorb everything. So what you do is you make up the difference with supplementation. So anybody with gastric bypass has to take a ton of vitamins, and in this case, maybe some digestive enzymes to help make up the difference. So it's nothing wrong with surgery for the right person. I have patients who have surgery, but you make up the difference by doing that. You just won't have the capacity to absorb and tolerate the amount of fat that maybe the next person can.
Awesome. Wow, we have $100 super chat. Goal met ? Thank you so much, William Scott. My goodness.
Wow. That's
because we're trying to get to, I don't know, we were just saying 10,000 because we started at around 9,000 and we're like $75 away from that in the GoFundMe.
Cool.
So I wonder if this is a donation for the GoFundMe, is my curiosity, Gary.
Yeah, I don't know where this went. I don't know if this hit my channel or the other one, but if it's mine, it's going directly towards the Metabolic Revolution. So we'll pass it forward if that's the case.
And I see, I don't remember like what the numbers were, but I do remember it's been at least 20 plus people who have donated. So I can see that we definitely have some engagement tonight. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, people have been awesome. This was my question that you didn't put up there, Carrie. Can we do a speed round for the GoFundMe?
Oh, I think we just did, didn't we?
Yeah, we just did.
Yeah.
I was going to say we're not ending until this gets to 10,000.
That's right. That's right. And the good thing about this YouTube is that there will be others who will see it later. And I can't wait to kind of see that number edge up a little bit as we continue to socialize again what metabolic health is, why rallies are important, and why everybody should be aware of the healing potential. So it really, again, warms my heart that we have this opportunity to be in front of people. And people, your time is precious. And for people to spend time with us, ask questions, be engaged, share how they're doing, it's all good. I love all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone watching this, sometimes people get confused. This was live, but you can share this and people can rewatch it and they can rewind. Right. And so please, if you can't donate to the Metabolic Revolution Rally, share the video and share the website. There's lots of good resources on the website as well that you can share also. So
that's right. Yeah.
So shall we wrap it up there?
Can I do what is it called? A shameless plug?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Please go watch the video with Dr. Hampton on my channel. Yes. It's so educational. I learned so much from that just walking through my blood work, and I found out I wasn't killing myself. So that was amazing. But joking aside, it was very educational, and I appreciate the hour that you spent with me and educating me. And I hope we can do that for more people. There you go. That's my request. Please go watch that video.
If it reaches more people, I have those conversations with patients in the office, but man, a lot more people will see it. So I think that's always a good idea. There's a guy who's a cardiologist who says, he looks at Carnivore Labs and says the opposite. And it blows my mind that he focuses on total cholesterol, he focuses on LDL, and I don't know what to do with that. I just think people just haven't quite, I don't want to ever question people's credentials, but the evidence is clear that we shouldn't worry about these things like we used to. So, yeah.
That's really awesome. And there's a link to Alia's channel in the description and Dr. Hampton's. And yeah, go watch that. That's one of the biggest questions I get from a lot of people, blood work on carnivore diet, keto diet. So this has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Alia. Thank you so much, Dr. Tony Hampton.
Yes.
Everyone check out Metabolic Revolution Rally. Links in the description. Please donate if you can. Please share. And thank you all for the great questions and the donations. And have a good night.
Take care, guys.
Bye, everyone.